Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a true classic, this time Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure from way back in 1989.
A real blast from the past.
To help us out today, we've got some choice sources. A Game FAQs guide, an IGN article, some wiki pages, and even a YouTube playthrough from Adventure Game Geek.
Excellent choices.
So what's the mission for this deep dive?
Well, I think we need to uncover some of the fascinating details about how this game actually expands on the Last Crusade movie.
Okay, you've got my attention.
It's not just a rehash of the film. It's like it's got its own unique story elements.
So it's more than just like pointing and clicking your way through the movie's plot.
Way more. Think of it like this. Point and click is the language of the game. You click to move Indy around, you click to look at stuff, talk to people.
Right.
But the actual story, that's where the real depth is. It starts at Barnett College, just like the film, but then it veers off in some really interesting directions.
You mean we get to see things that weren't in the movie?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For example, those catacombs under Venice.
Oh, yeah.
They're way more elaborate in the game. It's not just like a quick scene. They're really important to solving the whole Grail mystery. And then there are all these puzzles and challenges that you won't find in the movie at all.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
Oh, yeah, this is where it gets good.
So the game uses this point system, the Indy quotient, or IQ, so it's not just about finishing the game.
No, you got it. The IQ system, it's rewarding you for exploring, being clever, finding all the different solutions to things. You get points for solving puzzles in unique ways, or like if you decide to pick a fight with a really tough opponent, being resourceful.
So, like, if you're facing some impossible odds and you think, what would Indy do?
Exactly. It's all about thinking like Indy, and the game rewards you for it. And it gives you choices that actually matter. Like early on, you have to decide, do you give the Grail diary to Colonel Vogel, or do you give him a fake?
Ooh, a tough choice. What happens if you hand over the real diary?
Well, let's just say you end up on a little side quest to Berlin.
Yeah.
And you might even bump into Hitler himself.
Wait a minute, hold on. You can meet Hitler. That seems a little out there for an Indiana Jones game.
It is a pretty unique encounter, and it's not just some random thing either. Like, if you play your cards right, you can actually get him to sign your travel pass.
Okay.
And then, later on, that signed pass comes in really handy when you're trying to sneak past those Nazi roadblocks.
Wow. So decisions you make early in the game, they can actually change what happens later on.
Totally. It's like one of those choose-your-own-adventure books, but on a much bigger scale. The game's full of these branching paths. It's not just a straight line. It's all these different possibilities, and it really makes you think strategically.
Give me another example.
Okay, so picture this. You're escaping from the airport.
Yeah.
Now you can choose to take off in a Zeppelin or a biplane.
Oh, man. I'm already seeing myself in that biplane pulling off some crazy stunts.
That biplane escape. Pure LucasArts magic. You're dodging bullets, pulling off all those Indy-style maneuvers, trying to keep this old plane in the air.
Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. But there's a catch. Remember that manual Indy finds back in the Venice Library?
Yeah.
Well, to fly that biplane, you've got to remember those instructions from the manual. You can't just mash buttons and hope for the best. You need to understand how that plane works, adjust the controls right.
So it's not just about clicking on the right things. You have to really absorb what's going on, what you've learned.
That's exactly it. It's not just following a set path. You've got to make choices, solve puzzles, really experience the story. And that's what makes it so unique.
Speaking of unique, early versions of this game came with an actual physical copy of Henry Jones' Grail diary.
Oh, yeah, a real collector's item.
This isn't just some prop, is it?
No way. It's got tons of extra content. And what's really cool is that this diary, it's different from the one in the movie. It tells you even more about Indy's childhood, his relationship with his dad.
So it's like this secret, expanded Indiana Jones story.
Exactly. It's a fantastic bonus for fans of the movies. And speaking of expanding on the story, the game also throws in some curveballs that you won't find in the movie.
Like what?
Well, there are some extra trials hidden within the Grail Temple itself.
More trials. Bring them on. I'm ready for the challenge. Tell me more.
All right, so there's the Breath of God, which is all about testing your, well, let's call it spiritual purity.
Spiritual purity, huh?
And then there's the Word of God. This one requires following a very specific path, kind of like navigating a maze, but with a lot more at stake.
I'm intrigued. What's the last one?
The grand finale, the Path of God. It involves, let's just say, a pretty daring leap of faith.
Now you're really making me want to fire up this game. And that's all before we even get to the main event, choosing the right grail.
Yes, the final test. It's not as easy as you might think. You need to look back at all the clues you found throughout the game, those inscriptions Indy finds in the Venetian catacombs, and even that hidden painting in Brunwald Castle.
So it's all connected.
It's like one big, intricate puzzle. You need to think like Indy put all the pieces together.
Before we get to that, there's something else that really makes these LucasArts games special for me. Those little Easter eggs they hide in the game, those connections to their other games.
You mean those nods to their other titles?
Yeah, like that line, I'm selling these fine leather jackets.
The one that pops up in Monkey Island and Full Throttle.
And Last Crusade, too. It's like a wink from the developers.
It's a great way to connect all their games.
And it wasn't just lines. Remember Steve Purcell, the guy who created Sam & Max?
Yeah.
He was one of the artists on this game.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's amazing how all these creative people came together.
It really shows the collaborative spirit they had at LucasArts.
So we've got meaningful choices, a unique scoring system, hidden lore, connections to other games. This game was clearly way more than just a movie tie-in.
Absolutely. But we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover, from those challenging trials to the epic showdown at the Grail Temple.
Stick with us as we continue our deep dive into Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure. Okay, so last time we were just getting ready to talk about those extra trials in the Grail Temple.
Yes, those trials, they really add another dimension to the whole game.
Something you just wouldn't find in the movie, right?
Exactly. And they're not just about quick reflexes or finding some hidden object. They really make you think about Indy's character, his values, and the choices he has to make.
Okay, I'm really curious about these now. What's that first one all about?
Well, the first one is called The Breath of God. It's all about, spiritual purity, let's say.
Spiritual purity. That's interesting for a video game. So what does that look like?
That's the genius of it. The game doesn't hold your hand. You can figure out what actions, what choices demonstrate that purity.
So give me an example.
Well, it could be like returning a stolen artifact or choosing to help someone, even if it slows you down.
Okay, so it's not just about finding the solution. It's about really understanding Indy and making the choice he would make.
Exactly. You're playing as Indy, not just controlling him.
I like that. What's next? The second trial.
That's the word of God. It's a bit more straightforward. You have to follow a very specific path, like walking in the footsteps of God, literally.
Okay, so one wrong step.
And Indy's a goner. This is where those classic adventure game skills come in. Mapping the route, paying attention to detail.
Sounds like a test of patience for sure.
Oh yeah, this one will test you. And then the grand finale, the path of God.
This is the one you were talking about.
This one's intense. Imagine Indy. He's standing on the head of a giant lion statue.
Oh, wow.
A huge chasm opens up beneath him. And he has to take this leap of faith to reach the other side.
Can't you just hear the music swelling?
Right. Talk about a dramatic moment.
It's amazing how the game takes those classic Indiana Jones moments and makes you part of them.
Yeah. In the movies, we watch Indy face these challenges.
Yeah.
But here, it's you.
You're making the decisions.
Feeling that pressure. It's really something. Speaking of pressure, remember those escapes?
From the airport, yeah.
With the Zeppelin and the biplane?
Oh, yeah, the Zeppelin, the safe and sensible choice.
Right. But who wants to play it safe?
No way, a biplane.
The biplane is where it's at. It's pure adrenaline. You're dodging enemy fire, pulling off all those crazy moves.
Trying to keep this ancient plane in the air.
Trying not to crash.
Yeah.
It's a real test of your piloting skills, I'll tell you.
I bet.
And you know what? It ties back to that manual Indy finds in the Venice Library. You can't just take off in that biplane willy-nilly. You got to remember those instructions.
From the manual, yeah.
You have to adjust everything just right, follow that procedure. It's a whole mini-game within the game.
And if you just rush through, clickety-click, clickety-click.
You're going to miss out on those little details. You're going to miss the best parts. The game rewards you for taking your time.
For paying attention.
For thinking like Indy. Speaking of thinking like Indy, after the airport, there are still those roadblocks on the way to the Grail Temple.
Oh, yeah, those.
But good news? If you got that pass signed by Hitler,
you're golden.
You can sail right through. But even if you didn't meet the Fuhrer, you're not totally out of luck.
Oh, good.
There are other ways to deal with those roadblocks.
Like what?
Well, you can always try a little bribery.
Ah, good old-fashioned bribery.
A little financial persuasion can go a long way. And of course, there's always the option of using Indy's fists,
Ah, classic indie.
if you're feeling up for a challenge, that is.
So even at the roadblocks, the game gives you choices. Bribery, fisticuffs, or that signed pass.
That's right. Multiple solutions, choose your own adventure. And it all leads up to that final confrontation at the Grail Temple. And remember that painting in Brunwald Castle?
Why would...
Well, that painting, it's actually the key to solving the last puzzle, choosing the correct Grail.
So all those clues, all those choices, they all lead to this one moment.
It all comes together in the end.
Yeah.
Choosing the Grail, it's not just about picking the prettiest cup, you know. You have a look back at all those inscriptions Indy finds in the catacombs.
The inscriptions, right.
They give two different descriptions of the Grail. And the painting in the castle, it gives you one crucial detail, whether the Grail glows or not.
Ah, so that's how you figure it out.
You put it all together, the inscriptions, the painting.
It's like a detective case.
Exactly.
Hmm.
You've got to deduce which description is accurate. Then you can pick the true Grail. But even then, the adventure isn't over.
Oh, there's more.
There's one final challenge, a showdown, that really puts all of Indy's skills to the test. But I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played.
You're killing me.
But trust me, it's worth the wait. And speaking of things that are worth the wait, those Easter eggs we talk about,
Yeah, those little references.
they add so much to the game. It's like a little reward for paying attention.
And for being a fan of those other LucasArts games.
Exactly. Remember we mentioned that Steve Purcell, the creator of Sam & Max, worked on this game?
Yeah, I love Sam & Max.
Well, if you look closely at the character designs, you can really see his style in some of them, especially the villains.
No way.
It's a fun little detail to look out for.
So it's not just references, it's like a connection between those creative minds.
Absolutely. It shows how collaborative the whole team was at LucasArts.
Well, we've covered a lot. Branching narratives, moral choices, those trials, flying a biplane. This game is so much more than just a movie adaptation.
It really is. It encourages you to think, to explore, to experiment,
To become Indiana Jones.
to become Indiana Jones.
But our adventure isn't over yet. We've got one more part to go in our deep dive. Join us next time as we wrap up Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure. We'll talk about the lasting impact this game had and what it all means for us as players. All right, welcome back to the final part of our Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure deep dive. I have to say, this has been quite a ride.
It has.
We've explored those hidden trials, figured out all those puzzles and clues.
We even learned how to fly a biplane.
And from our armchairs, no less.
All from the comfort of home. But it really makes you realize how much more there is to this game than just, watching the movie again.
It really does. It's like you become part of the story. You're not just along for the ride. You're making choices that affect what happens to Indy.
Exactly. It's your adventure.
But as fun as this has been, we have to ask, why are we still talking about this game in, 2024? It's an old game.
It is. But it still holds up, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Why is that? Why does it stand out after all these years?
I think part of it is that they just nailed the Indiana Jones feel.
Yeah, totally. The humor, the action, the adventure, it's all there.
Oh, yeah.
But it also did something really new.
What do you mean?
It gave players real choices.
Yeah.
Choices that actually mattered. You remember those branching paths we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
Those moments where you have to decide, do I trust this person? Which way do I go? How do I approach this challenge?
And those choices really change the way the game plays out. It's like you want to play it again and again.
Exactly. You might know the movie ending, but the game keeps you guessing. What if I do this? What if I choose that? Can I get a higher score?
So it encourages you to experiment.
To find your own way to the Grail.
I like that.
And it stays true to those movies. The writing is great. The puzzles are clever.
And those little Easter eggs.
Oh, they're the best.
Yeah.
Those little nods to the other LucasArts games, like they're letting you in on a secret.
It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger.
It shows how much they loved games, those creators. They wanted to share that love. Speaking of the end of the game, the ending.
Yeah, without spoilers.
Without spoilers, it sticks with the feel of the movie, but then they add their own twist. You really start to think about, faith.
Fake, yeah.
Immortality. What are the consequences of chasing after that power?
Pretty deep stuff.
Deeper than you'd expect, for sure. But it makes you think, even after you finish playing. So why should we care about this game, now? I mean, games have come a long way since 1989.
You've got amazing graphics these days, huge worlds to explore.
Exactly.
So what can we learn from a pixelated adventure like this?
Well, I think it shows us that games, they can be incredible storytellers. They can transport us to other worlds, introduce us to characters we care about.
They make us feel things.
And those feelings, they stay with you, even after you put the controller down. It shows us that a game doesn't have to be this technological masterpiece to tell a good story.
Right.
To challenge you,
Yeah.
to make you feel something real.
And maybe, just maybe, it reminds us that games should be fun. Pure and simple. The kind of fun that makes you want to tell everyone about it, you know? Analyze it. Relive it. Years later.
Yeah.
So our final thought for you, dear listener, if you haven't played Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure you're really missing out, give it a try.
You might be surprised.
It's a classic for a reason. You might learn a thing or two, discover a secret or two.
You never know.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this adventure.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep those whips cracking.
And may the Grail be with you.